Hey, it's Cairo. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a top 10 video, the top 10 cards of 2022 for the standard format and why they matter going forward. If I may quote John F. Kennedy in my Magic the Gathering YouTube video, he said, "The only significance of analyzing the past is it does give us some key to the future." You're welcome, John. You finally made it. So without further ado, let's get started with number 10, Blood Tithe Harvester. Blood Tithe Harvester is a 3/2 for 2 mana that is a great attacker early. It's a good blocker that can trade up with 3 and 4 drops, and it also is a removal spell. So you can play it early, be pushing some damage, and your opponent plays a threat, and you just go, I'll sack the Blood Tithe Harvester, do -X based on the blood tokens I have. Maybe I have 1 or 2, and then even if it dies, you still get to sacrifice that blood token and loot out a card and get another answer. Maybe you're looking for another creature, which brings us to number 9, Corpse Appraiser. Corpse Appraiser is a 3/3 for 3 mana that can give you some card selection if you happen to exile a creature, of which there are many you want to get out of the opponent's graveyard, like Tenacious Underdog. It's not the most aggressive creature in the format, but 3/3 for 3 is great, especially when you're playing mid-range or it's in a control build. This is a solid creature early, it's a solid creature in the mid and the late game. It is not the worst draw. I would even go as far to say that this creature in particular is the reason that Grixis midrange is played a lot right now as opposed to just Rakdos. Number 8, Liliana of the Veil. There was a ton of hype about the reprint of Liliana of the Veil in Dominaria United, and it lived up to the hype. For the first probably 2-3 weeks to a month in Dominaria United Standard, there was not a black deck in existence without Liliana of the Veil, which pretty much negated any go tall strategy that the opponent could play. So the meta has adapted to a more go wide strategy, but Liliana still does see play in sideboards where appropriate. Number 7, Tenacious Underdog. It's a 3/2 for 2. It's a great attacker. It's a good blocker when your opponent can't blitz their creature back, but you can later. And whenever you have 2 Tenacious Underdogs in your graveyard and your opponent runs out of steam and you start blitzing these things back in, provided you have the life to support it and drawing cards, you can easily win games with just Tenacious Underdog. The reason it's not seeing play right now, I think, is because there's such ubiquitous graveyard hate in the meta in the form of Graveyard Trespasser, Corpse Appraiser, that will just exile it from the graveyard, so you don't really get that value, but nonetheless, a great card and a great showing for 2022. Number 6, a card that I love, Rafine Scheming Seer. When this was released in New Capenna Standard, this card was an absolute house. It blocks 1 drops, 2 drops, and 3 drops, mostly without dying. It provides card filtering when you connive. It buffs your other creatures whenever you attack. I think basically the only reason this isn't still top of the meta is the ubiquitous use of Cut Down, which targets it perfectly, gets rid of it for 2 mana, including the ward cost, and Oldrid on the field really shuts down your ability to connive because every card you draw you lose 2 life. But other than that, Rafine is a fantastic card, had a great showing in New Capenna Standard and beyond. That leads us to number 5. We're halfway there. Are you sensing a theme yet with the colors of these cards? Well, this one, I promise there are non-black cards in here. This one is Invoke Despair. Always a 3 for 1. If your opponents have built up a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker, you cast this, you eliminate all of them. If they don't have any combination of those, you draw cards and then they lose life. There is basically almost never a time where an Invoke Despair doesn't cripple your opponent's board unless they're playing strictly basically just tokens. Mono black control mirrors basically for the first month after Dominaria United. It depended on who invoked first to determine who won the match. That's how powerful Invoke Despair is. It's a super annoying card to play against if you're against it. Such a good card. Number 4, the first card that doesn't have a black mana symbol in the casting cost. It's Reckoner Bankbuster. This card was okay to good, in my personal opinion, whenever I tested it just after release. But at the time, that meta was really a more aggro versus control meta, with mid-range being kind of like a little bit farther behind. But as mid-range has come up to basically the top of the meta, Reckoner Bankbuster can really win you games and pull you ahead. I mean, once you get that pilot down, it also kind of becomes a beater, and it gives you a treasure token. This card is actually a really, really powerful card, and still is in a lot of decks. At number 3, we have the GOAT, or one of the GOATs of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, the Wandering Emperor. The Wandering Emperor is a 4-drop planeswalker that functions as removal. token generation, creature improvement, and it has flash. I remember in Neon Dynasty Standard, if your opponent had 2 white mana open and it was turn 4 and they just said go ahead, you expected an Emperor. It was basically in every white-based aggro and mid-range deck that could possibly run it. Number 2, hold it, Wandering Emperor. Enough white cards. Let's get back to black cards. It's Oldrid. And how exploitable this is actually really insane with card draw spells. On turn 4, dropping a 4/5 Death Touch. If you don't answer a Sheoldred, it can really win you games all by itself. It just sits there and it swings 4 life every single turn. Everybody pretty much knew Sheoldred was going to be busted, and it's still in every black-based mid-range deck, and I assume will continue to be until rotation. Here it is. It's the moment. Finally at number 1. You know what it is. Have you guessed it? It's Fable the Mirror Breaker, our first red card. Of course it's Fable. Fable is everywhere, for good reason. How much more value can you get for 3 mana? A 2/2 goblin that generates treasures. You get to loot 2 cards, throw away 2 cards that are useless, grab some answers, and then the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki paired with Blood Tithe Harvester, Corpse Appraiser, or basically a slew of other creatures all the way up to Titan of Industry, generates extreme advantage for you, and if it's not removed, it is a game ender. It is insane value. It is here to stay in Standard. It is my pick for number 1 of 2022, and I've actually heard that it has made huge waves in other formats as well. So what was the point of all this, really? We're going to be playing Magic in 2023, and the more correlations we can draw and the more examples of things that broke formats or are really powerful in formats, the more likely that we're going to be able to identify those early in the future. And so it's good analysis to do a flashback on these, and we look to the future of Magic the Gathering. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you agreed. If you disagree, leave it in the comments. You got some runners up, leave them in the comments. Feel free to share the video. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for hitting that thumbs up for me, and subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content. I will see you next time.